Should we talk about Loki?
I totally forgot that happened. You finished it?
Yeah, I finished it. Did you finish it?
I did.
So I thought the season was like kind of like a huge load of nothing. Like it just felt like plot. You know,
yeah, it's plot. It's like we gotta figure out how to like stop the loom, or the loom will explode. Okay, the loom exploded. Okay, I gotta figure out this time travel with my time slipping so I can go back and we can fix the loom with the thing. And then they spend a whole episode he does centuries of learning physics or something to fix this loom, and then it turns out, oh, you can't fix the loom. And so then he goes out and he like grabs time strands. I'm not sure how this is happening. And then he becomes the time king, and there's a time tree. And I saw on Twitter, everyone was like, oh, that was like the best thing like Marvel's ever done. I'm like, what? What? It's the best thing you've ever seen Marvel do?
I mean, it reminds me of there was some other show like that. Maybe it was Ahsoka, where or She-Hulk for that matter, or Rings of Power, where you're like, it seems like the consensus is that people like this, which is crazy to me. But then you realize you're like, oh no, it's because the only people that are watching are the ones that would like it. And there's like a shitload, like it's not like there's people watching who don't like it. Everybody who doesn't like it or who wouldn't like it didn't watch in the first place. You know, it's not a well-viewed thing in the first place. So that makes me feel a little less crazy. There was a guy that commented on one of our videos who heard that we didn't like the show. This guy, I thought, had a pretty good, pretty defensible, reasonable like explanation for why he liked the show. I don't know that I agree with it. Let's read it and we'll see.
Okay. Try to convince me, sir. I just want to, I'll say some nice things about it. Nice sets. I do like the performers and the performances, even though they're performing nothing. You know, Tom Hiddleston he's very charismatic, playing a guy. Loki is just a guy. I think it's more artful than a lot. Like the shot compositions are more artful than a lot of Marvel stuff. And yeah, the other than that, and the score is pretty good.
Well, they weren't shooting on the volume quite as much because it seems like they just built a physical TVA and they shot in it, and so therefore like the blocking and cinematography feels a little bit more free. I really like the pilot of Loki. I thought it was a really cool idea. Like Infinity War Loki died, Avengers Loki escaped with the Time Stone or with the Tesseract, not the Time Stone. But then landed in the TVA where sort of he has to learn about himself and he has to kind of like deprogram himself in infinity, basically. I thought that was kind of cool. Yeah. And then after that, it was just a whole lot of plot. And I thought they didn't do anything with the Kang thing and, more or less.
I thought they set up the multiverse in that. And then I feel like they set up the multiverse again in this one. They spent all the episodes just like redoing the finale of the first season.
He can't take the temporal radiation. This is a lot of that.
Temporal radiation is just too high.
But I thought like at the end of the day, this kind of glorious purpose thing, Loki does come into purpose. He does find something useful to do with his, he becomes the god that he never was. He fulfills sort of a destiny to hold time, to basically bind. He becomes part of the elements, in other words. I thought it was kind of interesting, and I thought like the payoff with Owen Wilson wasn't half bad.
Oh, they did not know what to do with Sylvie this season. The writers were like, we don't know what to do with her, so she's just going to be like a humorless shrew who like scolds Loki the whole time.
People love that.
And then like at the end, she's like, I don't know, like talking to Owen Wilson's character and she's like happy. I don't know. Anyway, I don't understand her character and I don't think the writers knew what to do with her either.
He had said, Loki season 2 is awesome. Bite your tongue, sirs. And I said, basically like, hey, explain it to me. And he said, so a few things qualifying that the latest Marvel and Star Wars outside of Guardians and Loki has been very underwhelming this year and going back beyond that. So already he just built a lot of credibility with me, which is he's going like, I want you to know first and foremost that I acknowledge that not all of this stuff has been working lately. Because if it was somebody who was just an apologist for all of it, that kind of hurts their credibility with me. Loki has, I think, the most motivated character-driven story, seeing him evolve and strip down to his motivations. I saw a highlight. I saw that at times, but mostly I didn't see that actually. To taken from the height of his hubris and villainy as a variant following 2012's attack on New York to a reluctant hero who just wants friends and to not be alone, chaos versus order, anarchy versus fascism, free will and determinism as thematic through lines on dichotomic display between two different Lokis and their core beliefs. Again, I saw that in the pilot for sure, and that was cool.
Yeah.
I think it's a fascinating journey, and the characters all around are great with awesome actors. Well, Owen Wilson, yes. The judge, no. The guard lady, no. Miss Minutes. Yeah, what felt like kind of like just like some fun cartoon shit that they were doing in the pilot, like turns into a real character, sorta.
Oh, and Short Round. Short Round's at least like you like seeing him, and he's enthusiastic.
He had decent moments. Like the second to last episode wasn't. I didn't hate it as much as the other episodes. The first 3 episodes, and probably culminating with the one back in time with Jonathan Majors, I was truly like, oh my god.
It was that was like bafflingly awful.
Yeah. To go back in time,
a chaos of particles is transformed into
his clown performance in the Benicio del Toro stutter from The Last Jedi, and oh my gosh.
I thought they'd at least be like, I'm actually Kang or something. I don't know. Something.
No, he was actually Victor Timely. He's just a friendly, stuttering guy. I don't know.
For no reason. Yeah. Problematic behavior aside, Majors is stellar. So you're saying Jonathan Majors is stellar in this show. So we disagree. And then I really like the timey-wimey lore building too. Well, I didn't think there was enough timey-wimey lore building. I thought that they were going to go all throughout time, but they don't. They mostly are in the set that they built.
Yeah.
I think the set designs are good. He follows. See, we're on the same wavelength, this guy and I. We just kind of go 2 different ways. And the scope of the show actually going to places in history like the Chicago World's Fair or 1970s London. But that's literally it, right? There's literally nothing. You named it. You're like everywhere from 1970s London to the Chicago World Fair. I'm like, and where else? Nowhere. It's not just sterile sets, and the spaghettification of reality is existentially terrifying to me. Yeah. Okay. So he's saying like every time looking like spaghetti is scary to him.
Yeah. Every time they deleted one of the lines on the screen, I felt that.
Right in my balls. It was like my Vas Devron was shriveling. Whoa.
Whoa.
Oh.
Oh.
Oh. I don't know why we were doing Krusty the Clown a second ago. Oh, you just deleted my entire existence. Oh.
The timeline where Loki is Krusty.
Glorious purpose. Yeah, as promised, we didn't see the Marvels, but I did. Spoilers. There's some X-Men link at the end, and I'm deeply confused by that because that's just kind of like a confession at this point that they're going to introduce the X-Men via the Fox multiverse. When it's like, why don't you just introduce them as a fresh, rebooted thing like you did with Spider-Man and Tom Holland? And if you want to do the multiverse thing later, if you're all out of ideas, I suppose you can. But why not just start fresh? The whole thing was like we were excited to see Marvel's X-Men, right? MCU's X-Men, not the bastardized 1999 X-Men.
Yeah, it just seems like the X-Men is one of the most popular Marvel things, and we're all excited. Many years ago when they acquired him just to start fresh and what they were going to do with him. But this is, I don't know what this is. And I guess they are going to drop Kang, or the rumor is they're going to just forget this all happened and just move on. Loki, when he turned into Time Tree Loki, he settled Kang. He's fine.
I took care of it. Mobius. I did see there were a lot of people that were hoping that Rogue, from the X-Men, was going to be featured in the Marvels somehow and would just take all of Captain Marvel's powers. Because I don't know if it was in the comics, but certainly in the Fox kids show, that's how Rogue, that's why she flies and that's why she has superpowers, is because she mostly took it from Captain Marvel. So I saw a lot of really funny comments that were like, hopefully Rogue will come in and do what needs to be done.
So one thing I will say about Loki is like, if you do like Loki, I actually do understand it, and I do think it is better than a lot of the other shows that were like, or like I can understand why you would like it. More than I can understand why you would like She-Hulk. Let's say.
Or Secret Invasion. Secret Invasion is literally the only one that critics and audiences hated. I charted it out, and it's the only one they all agree on.
Yeah, it's because Khaleesi is now the most powerful creature on the universe.
I was talking to somebody the other day who was like, he's like, "Hey, I didn't see that South Park episode yet, but I don't know if I'd get the joke, you know." He's like, "I don't know who Kathleen Kennedy is," and I was like, "Oh, well, I don't know that you need to know specifically who she is. But I think like, put a chick in it, make her gay. I mean,
put a chick in the linguine and make her fucking gay."
You've been watching movies for the last 4 years. You kind of know what that's making fun of. And he's like, "Actually, I don't." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "No diverse characters are coming to mind." And I was like, "You're telling me like," he's like, "Yeah, I mean, you know, they're few and far between. I mean, it's mostly still white guys, right?" And I was like, "Do we need to go?" Like, no, it's Khaleesi has every Avengers power ever. There's female Thor, there's female Hawkeye, there's female Black Panther, there's the Marvels, there's She-Hulk. I named them all. And you know what he did? He ignored me. He was like, "I don't see it." And I was like, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that the corporation seemed to have made that creative decision, and South Park was making fun of kind of the way that it panders sometimes. And he's like, "Yeah, I'll be honest with you, I don't know what you're talking about." Really fucking weird. I was like, this is one of the strangest conversations I've ever had.
And I want it lame.
But I'm glad the Marvels did well.
I was looking at the numbers, and I noticed that like when you think of the Eternals, you think of a movie that bombed, right?
Yeah.
The Eternals did bomb, but it did like double the business that Marvels did. I mean, Marvel here
was the I forget. Was the Eternals? When was that? What year was that?
2021.
Okay.
It was during COVID. It was as you were coming out of COVID, right? So, you can understand it not doing great. But the Marvels did. So the Marvels did 47 million for its opening weekend. The Eternals did 71.3.
What a mess! What a mess this all is. Like, I'm just thinking about the Eternals, and I'm like, wow, they introduced all these things, and they've never returned to any of them.
Well, because it would, like one of the things I was saying was, you'd have to be really stupid to sequelize Captain Marvel, right? And people were like, "No, because the first one made $1 billion." And I'm like, as well as I do that like that movie didn't have staying power, that was not that character did not hit with audiences. That was purely on the juice of the movies that surrounded it. Like you'd have to be willfully ignorant to sequelize that movie. Well, I think they're kind of, if they didn't know that now, they know it now. There ain't going to be a Captain Marvel 3. And unfortunately Rogue didn't do what needed to be done. But, cause that really would have been like, if you needed to let, Brie Larson make an escape, which you do. And you need to launch X-Men in order to get this thing corrected. Like, just do it as a way, transition her and, her powers over to the X-Men. That seems like the perfect thing. And then, and I think Kamala Khan, again, I didn't see the movie, but I thought she was like a total star in her own show. She's obviously really talented, and I think that she could really hit with audiences if they keep her around. So kind of fold her into the X-Men mix too,
Yeah, maybe they made her a mutant in at least the show.
Oh, but yeah, like they can't sequelize the Eternals, right? Like that's why they're not returning to it, because like you can't. It's like the Wii U.
I'm not really talking about the Eternals specifically. I'm just talking about all of the things, like Shang-Chi, like.
Right.
Like, remember with the like the first phase where you introduced the Iron Man, Thor, and then you had Captain America, and then you had the Avengers. Like you built that stuff up, and you had things connecting in each movie. Like you introduced Hawkeye in one of them, and they all kind of connect. And Samuel L. Jackson's like moving between them, and I feel like they've just introduced stuff like. It's just vomiting introductions all the time, but it's never building to anything. And even like Kang, like they like throw him around and he like dies, and then it's like, there he is. But it's not building. It's not like a building menace. It's more like just they've introduced the multiverse starting like many times in different ways in different movies. In the multiverses means different things in each property. Like in Loki, it seems like it's just branching paths of decisions, but in Doctor Strange, there's like art, colorful dimensions, and there's spaghetti balls and communism and other ones. It's like, it doesn't make any sense. That's not branching decisions. That's just like reality is different in all the multiverses.
Yeah. I heard recently that Echo, which is going to drop all at once on Disney Plus, presumably because they're not confident in it. But apparently it's going to be under some kind of a banner that says, hey, you don't have to do any homework to understand this show. It's a standalone thing. So they have it in their heads. And I read this a few times in the trades. They were like, oh, the reason the Marvels didn't do well is because we made too many movies. That's why. Like, that's not why. So they have it in their head that audiences think that there's a lot of homework that needs to be done. And so if they didn't see Secret Invasion, they won't get it. So that's why they're not seeing it. So they're going to try to rebrand things like with no homework. I'm like, I don't think that's it, guys. I think like everybody kind of knows that the Marvels is not going to be great. Right. And then it wasn't. So there you go.
And I think the spotlight is also, they want to do with those kind of series more smaller stories or more like experimental or lower budget stories is what I heard too.
Subscribe to Red Cow Entertainment on Patreon for full episodes every other week.